Welcome to Jerez for the fourth round of the 2013 European F3 Open. This, the second race of the weekend here, the eighth race of the season will bring us halfway through the 2013 campaign. 18 laps of the Circuito de Jerez await the 30 drivers making up the grid of the class of the 2013 European Formula 3 Open. My name is Ben Evans here in the commentary box at a very, very warm Jerez. It is 32 degrees air temperature, a lot warmer on the track and hotter still in the cockpit. A large crowd have been making their way in all morning to enjoy the action, and in this morning's absolutely scintillating qualifying session, it was Ed Jones who claimed pole position for Team Westtech. Jones, who finished second on the road in yesterday's race, was able to pip teammate Nelson Mason, who was victorious on the road in yesterday's race, to second on the grid. I say victorious on the road because post-race scrutineering identified an irregularity with the clutch of both Mason and Jones. They were excluded from the results. They've appealed that exclusion, so they still, pending that appeal, hold first and second from yesterday's race, but that will be decided at a later date. Third on the grid, Sandra Kubno, who scored his seasonal best result of fourth yesterday, and then Yarin Stern, the Israeli driver, the first of the Emilio de Vlota drivers, fourth on the grid. Stern, who was very impressive in qualifying this morning, really pushing his car to the limit. The same goes for Mario Marasca, a seasonal best, fifth in qualifying. The Italian driver for the BVM team. And Marasca has been quick and consistent all year. He's got the opportunity to score his best result of the season. Down in sixth on the grid is the championship leader, Sandy Stuvik. Stuvik, who has been extremely consistent this year, made his first real error of the year yesterday when he flew off the road. He recovered for fifth, but he will be looking to improve from sixth on the grid, as will the Uruguayan driver, Santiago Urrutia, who has got a huge following back in Uruguay, and they really see him as a star of the future. And certainly what we've seen this year would suggest that could well be the case. Alexander Toril, eighth on the grid, what's already proving to be a very successful day for the Toril family, after Miguel scored victory in the International GT Open race. Ninth then is Hector Hurst, the driver who comes into today's race fourth. Championship standings, already victorious this season. That was at the Nürburgring a couple of weeks ago, and then completing the top 10 is the former GP3 racer Vicky Piria, 10th in the championship standings, a position she shares with the Russian driver Alexei Chuklin. Piria from 10th on the grid, the opportunity to net a few more points in today's race. If you've never seen European F3 Open, to explain, there are two classes. There is the principal class, which is for the Lara F312 cars, and the copper class for the slightly older Lara F308s. The top six on the grid, though, are all Lara F312s, with Ed Jones and Nelson Mason looking out the front row, and both of them almost half a second clear of the rest of the pack. Sandra Kubno and Yarin Stern, row two. Santiago Urrutia, spectacular driver, but lots to do from seventh. Hector Hurst also from ninth. Tommaso Mencini was the first of the copper class runners. He is in 11th. Frustrated retiree yesterday. Andre Saravia has been in fine form this weekend. I think 14th doesn't reflect his true pace. The Copper Championship leader, Richard Gonda, starts from 16th. He's looking to build on yesterday's Copper class victory. Liam Venter never made it to the start of yesterday's race, and from 24th, it's a big ask for him to get onto the rostrum. Alexei Chuklin, who was an early retirement yesterday, has got an awful lot to do from 28th. Saud Al Faisal, who completes the grid, which is being cleared now. The other thing that you need to know about the European F3 Open is that all the cars run on a controlled Dunlop tyre, and also the engine and various other components are all supplied by the GT Sports organisation, which keeps the car performance as equal as possible. It really does come down to driver skill and also the skill of the teams in terms of engineering the cars and getting the setup to be absolutely perfect. The 8 stops at the European F3 Open can give the drivers an opportunity to race on either current or very recent Grand Prix circuits. They've got the glamour of racing at a big international meeting. It really teaches the drivers all that they need to know to then make the step on up through the international motorsport ladder. Yesterday's race, pending the results, being decided for appeal, was absolutely dominated by the Westtech duo of Nelson Mason and Ed Jones. Mason going through to score his second victory of the season. He was 6 seconds clear of Jones on the line. It means that after 7 races, it's Team Westtech who have claimed 4 of the wins so far, because Mason and Jones have both got 2 wins apiece. The other victories on the way of Santiago Urrutia, Sandy Stuvik and Hector Hurst. We'll see a new name on top of the rostrum today. I'm sure, in part, come down to the start, because that was when we saw many of the positional changes occur in yesterday's race, when, in particular, Ed Jones and Sandy Stuvik were a little bit sluggish away from the line. Others were able to pounce, and that thereafter set it up for a race that was close, that was tense, one where the drivers had real difficulty picking their way through the pack. Today, though, we've got a slightly more jump on the grid. We've got a lot of drivers a little bit lower than we normally expect to see them on the grid. Therefore, I think we should be in for plenty of drama. The bright yellow car you can see there is Tommaso Mencini, and Mencini, the foremost of the copper class cars in qualifying, the Corvette Competizione driver, where he will be looking to take some points off the overall copper class championship leader. That is Richard Gondel's Slovakian driver. Just caught a glimpse there of Gerardo Nieto, Mexican driver, who runs the DAV squad, who has been very unfortunate in the past couple of races, being caught out in other people's incidents that have led really to retirements for him. So he will be hoping for better luck today in the Spanish sunshine as the drivers come towards the end of this formation. And it's an 18-lap or 35-minute race. Generally speaking, we go to laps unless there's a safety car, in which case we will probably revert to time. Drivers moving around, getting a little bit of heat into the Dunlop tyres, although not too much, because given that we've had such high ambient temperature, drivers will be saying that the grip we're having on those first laps out of the pits on the first lap of yesterday's race was as if the tyres had been in the tyre wall, or as if they'd been running on them for a couple of laps already. So not to slide around too much, get too excessive heat into the tyres, because managing them over the race duration is absolutely key to make sure that the grip is as consistently as good towards the latter stage of the race as it is at the start. Cars coming to the grid now, a standing start, with then in pole position number 11, that is Ed Jones, alongside in the very similar WestTech car, Nelson Mason. And do we have a gap on the grid where Yaron Stern should be? Yes, we do. So Yaron Stern, the Israeli driver from Volta Motorsport, has had a problem on the formation lap. He's not there, fourth on the grid where he should be. A real disappointment, Yaron Stern. Less of this one for those behind, because it's one less car to overhaul, as the WestTech team wait nervously. Saud Al Faisal comes to his grid slot at the very rear of the field. We'll get the green flag wave from the marshal then, which means that the red light's about to flash on. When they flash out, we will go racing. The 5-second board shown to the drivers. The red light's on now. The revs rise, out they go. And who's got the jump here at Jerez for the 8th start of the season? It's a brilliant getaway from pole position for Jones. Nelson Mason slides across into second. It's Kubno in third, though he is under pressure from Mario Nebraska. Nebraska jumps through. He snatches third position. And Kubno now busy defending from Sandy Stuvik and Santiago Urrutia. So Alexander Torres as well, part of that mix, but they haven't made contact with each other as yet. So they all filter through the curve of each lap. Second turn, then sprinting through turns 3 and 4. This is when the tyres really have to start working. A couple of cars slightly at all angles further back in the pack. So Lexi Chuklin and Artur Janos, who are probably the most actively involved in that. So they head then through the curve of Cito Pons and onto the long back straight. Richard Gonda, who's had a slight problem there, as the RP squad busy doing battle. It's Santiago Urrutia under pressure from Toro, and then Hector Hurst trying to split them, and then looking to the outside. No change in that position. Well, Hurst has got the inside line coming out of the turn 6 hairpin towards the first couple of left-handers at turn 7. So it is Ed Jones leads the way. Second place Nelson Mason, third place Mario Nebraska, fourth is Alexandra Kubno, fifth is Sandy Stuvik, and at the moment the rest of the pack all doing battle over 6th position. It's currently held though by Santiago Urrutia. He's got Alexander Torres in the bright orange helmet car you see there now. In 7th, then it's Hector Hurst, who's up into 8th. Vicky Piria is in 9th. Andre Sravia it is who rounds out the top 10 as they jig through the Ayrton Senna chicane on to complete the first lap of the race. And the WestTech cars, as they did yesterday, have just checked out and run off into the distance. Already, Ed Jones is through. Nelson Mason fairly emphatically in second position. Then the rest of the field in very, very close competition with Mario Maraska in third. Now this could be interesting because this is the strongest we've seen Maraska running all season. His best result prior to today has been 7th, as Alexandra Kugno looks to dive to the inside into turn 1, and that's going to be very, very tight. And Kugno does well not to lose his nose cone against the rear of Mario Maraska's car. It brings Sandy Stuvik into the mix as well. Stuvik, the championship leader, not finished any lower than 5th position this year. He has had 5 podiums in the 7 races. He'd really like to make that 6 from 8. And he is on the tail of his French teammate, Alexandra Kugno. This weekend has been by far Kugno's strongest performance of the season. Now a slight gap back to Santiago Urrutia and the rest of the field. Stanis Nagulin just pitches the car slightly sideways, the bright white Campos machine, through the curve of Cito Pons, and that leaves him under pressure from Igor Urian as they head along the back straight. And there is Nagulin. Is he going to be able to hold his position? He is. Just there's no way through then for Igor Urian. Smash driver who's previously raced around the course to Nagulin, former Russian touring car racer who is in his 2nd season with the Campos squad in the European F3 Open. Hector Hurst, clear of Vicky Piri as they do battle over 8th and 9th. It's the bright yellow Corvette car of Tommaso Mencini, who leads the copper class at the moment from Igor Urian and Nicholas Pola, and you can see he's got the car of Nagulin between himself and Urian and Pola, who then got the Tech car of Cameron Twynham up onto his tail as well. So the fight for third arrives into the hairpin for the 2nd time, asking them out to complete the 2nd of 18 laps here. Jerez Saravia coming under pressure from Valerio Carballo as well. Carballo, who was 21st in last year's championship, running in the copper class, making a step up to the F312 this season with Campos Racing, unable to progress further on up through the field at the moment. She's then behind Saravia. Saravia putting in his strongest weekend of the season thus far as well. He's just beginning to lose touch ever so slightly with Vicky Piria, who's the next car in the queue ahead of him. This has been a good day thus far for the BVM team of Mario Maraska and Vicky Piria there. It's qualifying horses of the year, and in the case of Mario Maraska, the possibility of his first podium finish of the season, but he's going to have to work very hard for it as the copper class battle exits the curve of Cito Pons. There is the copper class championship leader, Richard Gonda, who's not even in the copper class points at the moment, as the gap between the race leaders has come down substantially here, and Nelson Mason is beginning to get himself onto terms with Ed Jones. He's thinking about asking some questions of race leader Jones, who rightly keeps his points from yesterday, is 2nd in the championship standings coming in today. It's Mason who is 3rd, both of them in the hunt for their 3rd victory of the season. Jones chinking through, there's his chicane. You can see just how hard Nelson Mason is trying in pursuit of him. And is there a problem here for Ed Jones, because he's having to defend now from Nelson Mason? I just wonder if everything is as it should be for Ed Jones, because last time through his lead over Nelson Mason was 1.9 seconds, and now Mason is right up onto his tail. It was 0.6 of a second at the last intermediate. It's down to just 0.3 of a second, and whether or not that was a mistake from Jones that he's trying to recover from, whether it's a sign of something a little bit more serious, we'll find out. Nelson Mason, though, pushing it a little bit too hard on the way out of turn 1. Whereas further back, we've got somebody ploughing through the gravel track. That's a bumpy ride, because the suspension of those cars is so stiff. That will probably result in a visit to a chiropractor tomorrow morning. So here is Jones, and the gap opening up between himself and Nelson Mason once more. What we really need to see is what happened to Ed Jones then last time through, because he had a very substantial advantage. It came down by 1.6 seconds. It's now gone up ever so slightly because of that mistake from Nelson Mason. Let's see whether or not Mason can get himself back onto terms with Ed Jones, whether Jones has the pace to pull clear. In qualifying this morning, Jones 1/10 of a second quicker than his Canadian teammate Nelson Mason. Mason, who dominated the first race of the season before finding people to drive into the 2nd and 3rd races. Thereafter, he's got his head down and has really worked with the tuition of the West Tech team to drive more consistently and just bring his natural pace into something that could be marshalled into a championship campaign rather than going gung-ho for outright race victories. That said, he clearly fancies his chances today of overhauling teammate Ed Jones. The car of Jones just looks to be ever so slightly off song. It could just be a trick of the camera, but to me, it doesn't look as if Jones has got the car quite at his disposal as he'd like it to be, because as they come over the line, again, this completes the fourth lap of the race. The gap goes out by 0.4 of a second. It's about 3/4 of a second, but if you think that Mason lost probably the best part of half a second running wide at turn 1 last time through, it means that still Mason has probably got the pace on Ed Jones to head through the curve of Michelin and then accelerate down the hill out to turn 3 into the very, very quick turn 4. To watch the cars through there is quite something to behold. And Jones slows again. It's a problem for Jones because Mason goes through and he takes the lead of the race on the way into the curve of Cito Ponds, and that looks an awful lot like a misfire. Yes, you can hear the raspy noise for the car of Ed Jones, and something is not as it should be mechanically, because Mason went through the corner you never see overtaking really, particularly in slicks and wings cars. Jones really plunging back for Nelson Mason. We've also seen the sort-out Mario Marasca has been overhauled by the RP Motorsport boards, and Marasca has dropped all the way down to 7th position. So it's now Alexandra Kugno is up to 3rd, 4th Sandy Stuvik, 5th Santiago Urrutia, and 6th Alexander Torrell. It's the battle between Urrutia and Torrell. We watch Torrell with the bright orange helmet, Santiago Urrutia the helmet in the colours of the Uruguayan flag. Send him some helmet to Mario Marasca, because he was in 3rd. He is now down to 7th. We have another look at the pass for the lead, and yet Ed Jones just suddenly running out of power on the exit of turn 4, and that was very easy for Nelson Mason. The Tech team on the pit gantry, a little bit perplexed as to what the issue could be. Anyway, they come through to complete the lap, and it's Mason who leads. Jones is going to soldier on here, but he's being chased down by Alexandra Kugno and Sandy Stuvik. Kugno and Stuvik are broken clear of Urrutia and Torrell. Alexandra Kugno, this would be by far his career best result in the European F3 Open last year. He was no stranger to the podium in the Copper class with the top F3 squad. Coming into this weekend, Kugno's best result had been 5th position. He got 4th yesterday. He stands every opportunity of being on the podium once more today, although he just has a little bit of a bobble into the curve of Cito Ponds, and that could give his teammate Sandy Stuvik a good run along the back straight here. Stuvik looking to use the slipstream. He's right underneath the rear wing of Alexandra Kugno. He's about a car length back, but he thinks about a dive to the inside. Thinks better of it, so it's still Kugno who holds on in 3rd position. Stuvik in 4th. The pair of them attempting to come to terms with Ed Jones. And whatever issue Jones has got, it would appear to be an intermittent one, because he's suddenly dropping off pace, and then he's now once more able to hold his own from the Dicing RP Motorsport teammates. RP Motorsport, no strangers to Dicing teammates. Last year's championship, of course, came down to a head-to-head between Nicolo Schiro and Gianmarco Raimondo, both RP Motorsport drivers this year. They've really got 4 drivers, all of whom are racing themselves into championship contention. It's the championship leader, Sandy Stuvik, who is the second of the cars. You can see on stream, the Thai driver, his one victory came in the wet dry race at Paul Ricard, where he was chased all the way by Yarin Sturm. And that set off a remarkable run of 5 consecutive podiums. It could well be the 6th podium finish of the season today, whether he can overhaul Alexandra Kugno and then Jones. In terms of the Copper class, it's still that bright yellow car of Tommaso Mencini who leads the way from Igor Urian. There is Spanish driver Igor Urian, who is 4th in the Copper standings coming to stage race. Well, overhaul Cameron Twynham in the points. Up to 3rd if he's able to stay where he is. Andres Saravia in 11th place. He's been demoted by Valerio Carballo. It's clear enough, though, of Tommaso Mencini, not to worry about Mencini. Mencini, though, has got Dennis Lagulin on his tail, providing quite a nice buffer, really, before Mencini is at risk of being caught in a battle with Yuri and Nicholas Pola, who are the other 2 cars in contention for the Copper class rostrum, fighting for 12th place in the race overall. They're on lap 7 of the race at the moment, and heading in to the curve of Jorge Martinez is Tommaso Mencini. Now that is very interesting. Ed Jones set the fastest lap of the race last time round, so I am somewhat befuddled as to what the problem Fred Jones is, because the way he shot out of the blocks at the start of the race was very emphatic, and he's now suddenly getting back into the pace as well, as Cameron Twynham does all he can from fourth in the copper class to climb onto the tail. Well, Nicholas Pola is just up ahead of him, so we could have a nice copper class battle shaping up between now and the stage of the race. Still, Igor Urian, who is second in the class, trying to accelerate clear of the German Pola, and then Cameron Twynham as well. They've also got Chewan Lim and Gerardo Nieto, who aren't too far back either, so we've got the top six in the copper class all covered by the length of the start and finish straight. Well, the closest battle amongst them is the one between Igor Urian and Nicholas Pola, but if they get themselves too closely caught to battle, then Cameron Twynham is ideally positioned to take advantage. Twynham accelerating on towards turn 4 in pursuit of the German driver, Nicholas Pola, who's graduated on to the European F3 Open from the ADAC Female Master Series in Germany, which is very much an introductory six and wings categories. Are we going to see a challenge here from Andre Saravia on Valeria Carballo? Carballo so car to the inside of the road, there's no way through there. Also got Vicky Piria, who is coming right up onto the tail of Hector Hurst, to challenge Hurst. Hurst, the first of the motorsport cars in the race at the moment, in 8th position, which isn't going to do wonders for his championship challenge with his rivals. Considerably further up the road. So there is Hurst, the black number 6 car, it's Vicky Piria, the white and orange machine. Then that gap back to Valeria Carballo, still doing battle with the Guatemalan driver, Andre Saravia, as they jump over the curves, coming out of the SSH, came through the curve of Ferrari and into the final hairpin, bringing off then the 8th lap of the race. Just 10 to go here in Jerez. The gap between Mason and Jones is 3.3 seconds. Still no change in the order between Jones, Kugno and Stuvik, so whatever the issue Fred Jones is, or was, it's not got any worse. Instead, the battling is really quite intense, a little bit lower down, the top 10. So we've got Hector Hurst, Vicky Piria, then Valeria Carballo, Andre Saravia battles through the brace of sweeping left-handers for the long turn 5 Curvacito Ponds, and this is the absolutely critical corner on the track because it sets you up for the run along the back straight. As Carballo just ran slightly offline there on the way into the turn. We watch the drag along the back straight between Hurst and Piria, but really is whether or not Saravia can take advantage and dive to the inside of Valeria Carballo. Not quite. Valeria Carballo lucky to hold her position there because she was very well on the way into the Curvacito Pond. She also kicks out the tail of the car, accelerating out of the hairpin. Saravia looks to the inside again to the curve of Jorge Martinez, and then brace of right-handers. Nieto next up, really an overtaking opportunity. Instead, Saravia is looking to mount the pressure on Valeria Carballo. So they head on towards the end of another lap. She's going to chalk up half-race distance here. Lovely shot there. You can see just how hard Andre Saravia is working the cockpit of his Polotta car. It's his teammate Hector Hurst who he's chasing down. He's really all part of that scrap. Still no change half distance in the overall order. So it's Nelson Mason from Ed Jones, Sondre Kugno, Sandy Stuvik, Santiago Urrutia in 5th, and Alexander Torrell then completing the top 6. We're really watching the battles though for the lower standings within the top 10. Hurst looking to try and hold on to the 8th position, which will give him 4 additional championship points, as the race leader Nelson Mason accelerates along the back straight. And we've got now a battle going on for 3rd in the copper class between Nicholas Pola and the blue car of Cameron Twynham. And Pola, who has been victorious in the copper class this year, that was at Paul Ricard earlier in the season, is now going to have his work cut out to try and keep Cameron Twynham at bay. A pair of them swooping through Curvacito Ponds onto the back straight. Now this is Cameron Twynham's best opportunity if he can use the slipstream behind Nicholas Pola. It's all good news for Igor Urian. Or is it? Has Urian dropped back as part of that battle as well? Now that's Chewan Lim just behind him in a very similar Velocity Motorsport car, but it could be, there's Igor Yuriev. So he's broken clear then of the battle between Polar and Twinem, which could find itself being backed towards Chaewon Lim as well, who is not too far adrift, but Cameron Twinem having closed right up into Nicholas Polar. Unfortunately for him, he did it really at the section of the circuit where you absolutely cannot overtake, as he kicks up the AstroTurf. He's evidently a little bit quicker than the German driver in the DAV Motorsport car. Of course, it's Maxim, particularly in single-seater racing. It's one thing to catch the car in front, quite another to find your way past it. And Cameron Twinem is the challenge he faces around the hairpin. He accelerates once more, and a long start and finish straight. Start and finish line, and the gap between Polar and Twinem goes out ever so slightly. Goes into the almost blind entry to turn 1. Curve of Michelin. The road just falls away ever so slightly to go around the back of the race control building and media centre, swoop through turn 4. Nelson Mason continuing to lead the way. He's on the 11th of the 18 laps. There is teammate Ed Jones just adrift of him. And then Alexandra Kugno in third, who is comprehensively seen off the challenger Sandy Stuvik. Stuvik has dropped back suddenly. I'm still perplexed as to the problem that befell Ed Jones earlier on, but ever since he was passed by Nelson Mason, he's really ran without any problems whatsoever, which maybe indicates a missed gear, but that seems very unlikely. There's Alexandra Kugno then, who runs in third. This would be his first outright race podium in the European F3 Open. Second place is still within touching distance, and if Jones should have any issues reoccur, that is going to be Kugno's opportunity. Sandy Stuvik is in fourth, so he once more will concede points in his championship lead to Mason and Jones. And Yarin Stern, who never made it to the grid, is back into the pits. The laptop's plugged in. Investigations continue, but I think the somewhat rueful shake of the head from Stern tells you all that you need to know about his prospects for the remainder of this race. So Nelson Mason poised here to become potentially our first double winner of the 2013 season in terms of doing the back-to-back wins on a single race weekend. He's already scored one confirmed victory this season. Yesterday's win, we said earlier on, will be decided finally at a later date, but for now he's got the points, he's got the win. So he's looking to make it double as Nicholas Polar, we see, having more dramas, flicking the car into the air over the curbs. Nothing else that'll be sought for him tomorrow morning. Hasn't as yet cost him the place on the Copper Class roster, and Cameron Twinem is still sits in behind him. So Alexandra Kugno. Third in last year's Copper Class Championship, 8 podiums on the way, stepped up to the F312, and he's really gone about learning his craft very diligently, because last season there was a perception, rightly or wrongly, that maybe he was a little bit too aggressive, sometimes got involved in altercations he didn't need to. This year it's been very different. He's been much smoother, learned all about what the F312 is doing. He's now steadily, race on race, moving further towards the front of the field as Liam Venter has good battle with Damiano Favoranti, and it's Favoranti who gains the position. That is for 20th place. Still, Santiago Urrutia and Alexander Toril do battle over 5th and 6th position, and this, again, frustrating for Urrutia because he didn't get on the rostrum at the Nürburgring. He got 3rd place yesterday, which could become 1st, and today it's looking like it could be 5th position once more. And really what Urrutia needs to drive himself into championship contention is just a consistent run of back-to-back podiums, whereas at the moment it's kind of a 50-50 thing with Urrutia. Some races he gets on the rostrum, others he doesn't. Alexander Toril has also been very impressive this season. He's just racking up the points. He's currently 6th in the standings, is Toril. Again, it's probably slightly overdue a trip back to the rostrum. To Hurst remains in 8th position, continues to withstand the pressure from Vicky Piria, and they're just beginning to get towards the tail of Piria's BVM teammate, Mario Marasca. And then we've got the battle ongoing as well between Valeria Carballo and Andrei Saravia. That is for the final championship points day. So Vicky Piria, should she stay where she is going to get 2 more championship points, and that will move her clear of Alexei Chuklin, who's currently down in 22nd position. It's Emilio De Vlotta Senior in the white shirt, watching on, the former Formula 1 racer with Williams, amongst others. It's his son, Emilio De Vlotta Jr., who essentially runs the team, a former racer himself. But today he's not proving to be one of their best with their first car in 8th place. Up ahead it is Westtech, RP and BVM, all got cars slightly further up in the queue. Given that Hector Hurst is still busy defending from Vicky Piria, it's unlikely that Hurst is going to improve further up the order. Lower down the pack, Saud El Faisal snatches a break, potentially flat spots his Dunlop tyre. Though, under absolutely no pressure at all from Stivic, as Torrell again jinks out the slipstream, looks the inside of Santiago Urrutia, and we saw this yesterday with Alexander Torrell, that he's got the somewhat amazing ability to sit right underneath the rear wing of the car in front throughout much of the race, despite the negative effects that can sometimes have in terms of understeer and tyre grade. But Torrell has the commitment, and into the pit lane we have got Richard Gonda, so the championship leader in the Copper class, Drive School, yesterday's winner, out of the race. No points for him. Came into today's race with a 16-point lead in the Copper class standing, so it's far from a disaster. He'll still be at the end of the table when we go to Silverstone in 3 weeks' time. Towards the completion of the lap, then the battle for 5th and 6th position between Santiago Urrutia and Alexander Torrell. Nelson Mason leading then after 14 laps by 1.4 seconds from Ed Jones, and Jones trying to come back at his Westtech teammate. He was 0.3 a second quicker last time around, so he's not lost just yet for Ed Jones. After the problems that he had earlier on in the race, he has recovered remarkably. He is currently, or he was, holding the fastest lap of the race. That has now swung the way of Nelson Mason, but he is closing in on Mason. As a result, a pair of them are dropping Alexandra Cugno, and really these two have been the class of the field all weekend. They were the 2 fastest drivers in qualifying yesterday by the best part of half a second over the rest of the pack. They ran away with yesterday's race and finished 10 seconds clear of the rest of the field. And again today they have been able to race amongst themselves and haven't been under any particular pressure at all from those behind. The order is the same as it was yesterday, with Nelson Mason clear of Ed Jones, not by such a margin that you suspect based on qualifying this morning and then subsequent performance in the race, that really it's Jones who has got the legs. Certainly that's clear. He's just set now the fast lap of race in retaliation to Nelson Mason's pace, and Jones pushing hard, about to complete the 15th lap, so there is an opportunity. Mason has maybe pushed his tyres a little bit too much. Fred Jones yet to come back and score his 3rd victory of the season, so out of the final hairpin they come, accelerating over the grid hatchings and through to consign the 15th lap of the race to history. It gives us 3 to go, and the gap between the leaders is down again. It's just 1.1 seconds between the 2 Westtech drivers. John Miller and the rest of the squad be watching on nervously on the pit wall, because whilst it's very nice to see your cars clear at the head of the field, which is far rather see a little bit of separation maybe between them rather than the pair of them getting embroiled in battle. You can see just how hard Mason's working, juddering the rear wing of the car under braking. Jones in hot pursuit, and what's even more impressive is that both of them, relatively speaking, don't have a huge amount of four-wheel racing experience. Ed Jones in his 3rd season of car racing. Nelson Mason's been around a little bit longer, but has never really had the budget to put together a full and consistent programme to the degree that he would like. Yeah, the gap is inexorably chipping on downwards, and you just wonder whether or not Jones is timing this to perfection, because if he continues to close in on Nelson Mason the way that he currently is, it means probably with 1.5 laps to go, he's going to be right in contact with his teammate and may just be able to surprise him on the last lap to snatch the victory. As the pair of them sprint on towards the centre chicane. It's going to give us 2 to go in a couple of corners' time. And Mason is pushing very, very hard. He's sliding the rear of the car. Ed Jones, by contrast, a little bit smoother. He's not spinning up the rear tyres in quite the same way. These Formula 3 cars have got far more grip relative to the power that they've got available, and therefore, when you see a Formula 3 car sliding, that's really not the quickest way to drive it. Instead, it's all about being smooth and consistent, carrying the exit speed from the corners, so they flash through, and the gap is 1.1 seconds, and actually the pair of them, lap time round, setting broadly speaking identical lap times. Then we have the RP Motorsport Quartet, no change in that order, so it's Alexandra Kugno from Sandy Stuvik, Santiago Urrutia and Alexander Toril, and then a big gap back to Mario Maraska, who was in third early on, got shuffled down the pack. He's in seventh, but under no pressure from Hector Hurst, who's still being pursued by Vicky Piria. Hurst able to hold on to 8th place, Piria in 9th, and then Andre Saravia has been able to pass Valerio Carballo, so it's Saravia now who moves up to complete the top 10 placings as around the hairpin at the end of the long back straight. Head the leading duo, Nelson Mason from Ed Jones. And this is going to inch them ever closer to Sandy Stuvik in the championship standings. Alexandra Kugno, though, today could be a real watermark because he has been very impressive all weekend. At the start of the season, he wasn't really quite running at the same pace as particularly Stuvik and Urrutia, but this weekend he's suddenly been right in the mix amongst the RP Motorsport runners, and in qualifying this morning, and qualified all of his teammates, put together a string of devastatingly quick laps. He's continued that in the race today, and he is just 1 lap away from his first ever outright race podium in the European F3 Open. Nelson Mason, as he accelerates into the final lap of the race, this will be his 4th trip to the rostrum this season, 3 wins and 1 second place. For Ed Jones, likewise 2 wins, and this would be his second place as well. Only got now just under 4 kilometres between themselves and the checkered flag, and completing what has been an utterly dominant weekend, the pair of them and the West Tech team. First 2 places in both qualifying sessions, first 2 places in yesterday's race, and it looks like the first 2 places again today. Out of the curve, Aceto Pons then for the final time accelerates Nelson Mason. He's got a sufficient buffer over teammate Ed Jones. It's down to under a second, but he's not close enough, is Jones, to really threaten Mason. Unless Mason has something go horribly wrong, then he is going to claim the victory, although one that I think will require a little bit of discussion afterwards, because I'm still intrigued as to what caused Ed Jones to slow something on those 2 occasions. Firstly, to allow Nelson Mason to his tail, and then secondly, to allow Mason to pass him so easily through turn 4. That, though, is for discussion after the event. For now, they've just got a couple of corners before they come home as they hit the braking zone for the chicane for the final time. They've just got the Curva Ferrari and then the last hairpin before they arrive at the checkered flag. Mason accelerating out to the Curva Ferrari, hits the brakes, looks into the hairpin. Jones just showing himself in the mirrors on the way in, but he's far too far back to do anything about Nelson Mason, who accelerates onto the checkered flag, and he completes the double here this weekend in Jerez in the European F3 Open. Second place goes to Ed Jones, and completing the rostrum, Alexandra Kugno, the first of 4 RP Motorsport runners, with Sandy Stuvik in 4th, Santiago Urrutia in 5th, and Alexander Toril completing the top 6. For 7th place, Mario Maraska should hold on, and it is going to be Tommaso Mencini who will claim Copper Class honours. Very impressive performance this from Mencini, his 2nd Copper Class victory of the season. He celebrates with the Corvette Competizione team. He accelerates over the line, he takes 12th in the race overall. 2nd in Copper Class has gone the way of Igor Urian, and completing the Copper Class podium, Nicholas Pola. So a very, very lively race that from European F3 Open, one with plenty of drama and intrigue. sets us up very well for the second half of the season, because from Jerez we will go to the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in a week's time for the middle of July, and then a long summer break before the circus reconvenes at Spa in September, a trip to Monza in October, and the season then finishes back here in Spain, second weekend of November at the circuit to Catalonia. But as we hit the halfway point of the season, well, we have got a very intriguing narrative emerging, because it's still Sandy Stuvik who has driven with unbelievable consistency to finish in the top 5 in every single race thus far, who leads the way. But he's got the West drivers Nelson Mason and Ed Jones snapping his heels and closing down Stuvik's advantage all the while. We go to Silverstone, and then into the second half of the season, will RP Motorsport have a response? Will West dominance continue? For now, let's have a look at the final results. It's the win for Nelson Mason. Second place goes to Ed Jones, who also gets the fastest lap, and the podium completed Alexandra Kugno, ahead of his teammates Sandy Stuvik, Santiago Urrutia and Alexander Torrell. Mario Marasca finished 7th, Hector Snake, Nicky Piria and Andre Saravia completing the top 10, and the points 12th goes to Tommaso Mencini, who wins the copper class from Igor Urian in 14th, the pair of them sandwiching Denis Nagulin, who has his second best result of the season in 13th. Nicholas Pola then completes the top class podium in 15th, seeing off the challenge of Cameron Twynham, and then Gerardo Nieto was able to jump clear of Che Wan Lim in the latter stages, with then Damiano Favoranti and Liam Venter completing top 20. Yarin Stern and Richard Gonda the only casualties. So in terms of the Drivers' Championship, it's closing up now. Just 17 points separating Sandy Stuvik and Ed Jones and Nelson Mason, both there on 110 points. Santiago Urrutia in 4th. He's moved up ahead of Hector Hurst, who slides to 5th after, by his standards, a relatively disappointing visit to Jerez. Not so, though, for the Canadian driver Nelson Mason, who has utterly dominated proceedings this weekend. I'm sure the West Tech squad will be overjoyed with his performance. Mason gets out, handshakes all around and smiles. Ed Jones looking a little bit disappointed, and
that was yours, man. Sorry about
probably
that.
Understandably so. And you could maybe hear that over the microphone, Nelson Mason saying to Ed Jones, "That was yours, man." So clearly Mason recognises that had it not been those issues for Ed Jones, then that would have been the 3rd victory of the season for Ed Jones. As it is, Jones is very, very much in championship contention. So the drivers being ushered on towards the rostrum here in Jerez, as the celebrations begin in pit lane amongst the teams. It's always at the end of the weekend after the second race, a very celebratory atmosphere. The teams in the European F3 Open work so hard. They have 3 free practice sessions on a Friday, then on Saturday it's 30 minutes of qualifying, and the race on Sunday morning. They're up with the birds for a 9 o'clock normally qualifying session, followed by the race. Let's have a look then at the highlights. Dramatic encounter. It was Ed Jones who immediately converted pole position to move clear of Nelson Mason, with Alexandra Kugno and Mario Marasca going wheel to wheel into the first turns. Marasca got his nose ahead of the RP Motorsport quartet, as everybody else behind jostled for position, subbed a little bit more vigorously than others as they all swarmed into the curve of Michelin for the first time. Came through the end of the first lap. Jones and Mason breaking well clear of the rest of the field, with Mario Marasca doggedly defending from Alexandra Kugno. Kugno very lucky not to lose his nose cone, but then Jones slowed, suddenly coming out of the curve of Ferrari, and brought Nelson Mason immediately onto his tail. Jones then was able to recover his pace for a lap or so as Mason applied the pressure. Jones able to withstand it, drove 10th or 2 clear of Mason, then slowed again coming through turn 4. That was all that Mason needed to jump through and snatch a lead. He would have relinquished. Jones, having had that problem, which was causing the car to slow dramatically, then got up to pace and stayed there for the rest of the race. In the copper class was Tommaso Mencini, who led from lights to flag with a very handy buffer of Denis Nagulin between himself and Igor Urian, who spent much of the race defending off Nicholas Pola until the German driver Pola got caught in a battle with Cameron Twynham. But at the flag, It was Nelson Mason scoring his second victory of the weekend from Ed Jones in second, and Alexandra Kugno completing the rostrum. Tommaso Mencini scoring the Copper Class honours.
That was yours, man. Sorry about that.
National anthems complete on the Jerez rostrum, along with the presentation of the trophies, and reflecting the local winning culture. It is sherry glass trophies this weekend. Delighted Alexandra Kugno with that third position. Second place for Ed Jones. Quickest driver here today, for whatever reason, unable to take the victory. And Nelson Mason, the double winner in Jerez this weekend. Delight for Mason. And then for Team Westtech as well, they receive their team's trophy. Huge applause from the mechanics as the drivers get to work with the champagne fight on the rostrum. And then they'll be posing for the photos as well. The massed ranks of the Westtech squad, they run so many cars in this championship, as do many of the teams, that they all travel with a large number of mechanics. It's the same for RP Motorsport and Emilio de Velosa as well. Preparing something in the region of 6 or 7 cars each weekend is a very, very tricky logistical operation, but it's paid off for RP and Westtech this weekend. They've really been the dominant teams. For Alexandra Kugno, his career best, third place in the race. Ed Jones, a slightly disappointing second position. And then Nelson Mason doing the double this weekend, and with pole position yesterday as well. He really has been the dominant driver. So the podium celebrations continue, because we'll move on to the podium for the Copper Class, which is for the Dallara F308s. And again, been a very entertaining race amongst the Copper Class drivers this weekend. So third place for Nicholas Perler. Great to see the DAV Racing man back on form. He moves on to the third step of the rostrum. Second place, a home podium for Igor Urian, Spanish driver who's been getting faster and faster as the year has progressed. And then our Copper Class winner for today, Tommaso Mencini, who closes up on Richard Gonda, who scored no points, and the winning team, Corbetta Competizione. Italian national anthem for Tommaso Mencini, and the drivers about to be presented with their trophies on the rostrum as well. And then we will have the traditional champagne fight. So for Igor Urian, 14th place, second in the Copper Class, matching his best result of the season. And then Tommaso Mencini, an excellent drive to claim the Copper Class honours. Mencini celebrates. Here comes the disappointment of yesterday. And then Corbetta Competizione, their second victory as well in the Copper Class this season. So that just about brings to an end proceedings here at Jerez. Thank you very much for your company this weekend and for the first half of what has been an excellent season of racing from European F3 Open. The teams now have a short break before we reconvene in the middle of July on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. So until then, from myself, Ben Evans, here in the sunshine of Jerez, we'll say goodbye and see you in Silverstone.
Nice again.